how can we define the problem? Carefully defining the problem is the first step of our decision-making model. Why is defining the problem so important? Why not skip to the fun part? It's because sometimes our decisions and problem-solving efforts fail because we solve the wrong problem. It is also the case that the problem we addressed was really just a symptom of a much deeper issue. We've been known to skip the decision-making process altogether and think about solutions before we really pinpoint the problem. As you can see, identifying the right problem at the very beginning of the decision-making process helps us make better decisions. There are many ways to define a problem, but the following suggestions can guide us as we seek to understand exactly what problem we are trying to solve. The first step is to conduct a stakeholder analysis to identify and prioritize key stakeholders. Stakeholders are the people who have an interest in the organization, and when it comes to decision-making, the problem. These individuals will play an important role in helping us solve the problem by providing input and support throughout the process. Managers should identify the stakeholders' goals and their support or resistance. Remember, however, that different stakeholders will likely have different goals, and managers may not be able to satisfy every stakeholder's every need. After we've identified the stakeholders, we should carefully and correctly frame the problem. If we frame a problem in terms of losses, for instance, people may make a different decision than if we frame the same problem in terms of gains. In addition, if we assume there are only two options, or commit the black or white fallacy, we may miss out on better solutions. Then, we need to know what is and what is not included in the problem we are trying to address. We do this by identifying the problem scope, or the boundaries of the problem. One technique is to use an affinity diagram to categorize different pieces of the problem. First, brainstorm possible causes of the problem with other stakeholders. Get as many ideas on paper as possible, shown here with the blue rectangles. Then, categorize and label the various ideas into themes, such as quality, service, delivery, and price. Another way to identify the boundaries of a problem is to use what is called the is-not method to identify what is and what is not part of the problem scope. First, create two columns. Label one is and the other is not. Second, create at least 4 rows with who, what, when, and where. Then, fill in each box with relevant information and incorporate the information into the problem statement. This method helps us identify those things that are beyond the scope of the problem and that could potentially derail the whole process. You can also use graphs to help you visualize the available information. Here we have a histogram, which is a bar chart that allows us to graph the frequency of 2 categories of information. This chart shows the frequency of salaries. Salary ranges lie along the horizontal axis, and the frequency of employees who earn that salary lie along the vertical axis. As you can see, the majority of employees make $50,000 or less, while a few employees make closer to 6 figures. A scatter plot shows you the relationship between 2 variables. Here, advertising expenses are along the horizontal axis, and sales are along the vertical axis. We can see that as we spend more money in advertising, our sales also tend to increase. A behavior over time chart shows us how behaviors change over time. Here we have the 12 months of the year along the horizontal axis and revenue along the vertical axis. It is easy to see that revenue steadily increased throughout the year. Once you've clearly outlined the problem scope, you can start to identify who will be responsible for solving the problem and determine their level of involvement in the process. To help you decide how to decide, you may want to use the Vroom-Yetton model. According to this model, there are 5 different levels of participation in the decision-making process. Decide is when the manager makes the decision. Consult individually is when the manager gathers input from each employee individually. Consult group is when the manager gathers input from a group of employees. Facilitate group is when the manager facilitates the decision-making process with a group of employees and serves as an idea generator as well. Delegate is when the manager asks the employees to make the decision and serves only as a resource in the process. To determine which of the 5 levels to use, we answer yes, no to a series of questions, and then use their chart to find the appropriate level of participation. These questions are taken directly from Vroom and Yetton's model. Is the quality of the decision important? Is team commitment to the decision important? Do you have enough information to make the decision on your own? Is the problem well structured? If you made the decision yourself, would the team support it? Does the team share the organization's goals? And is conflict amongst the team over the decision likely? Another suggestion is the importance of understanding the organization as a system of interrelated parts. A system is a complex unit made up of interrelated parts. When we view the organization as a system, it enables us to think about its various components and how changes to one component might impact other components, directly and indirectly. System thinking also allows us to identify the underlying cause of a problem and determine how solutions to this problem may impact other parts of the organization. For instance, we may assume that our problem is turnover, when in fact turnover is a symptom of our deficient hiring policies. System thinking encourages us to think about how a change to our hiring policies might also impact the budget, legal concerns, and training needs. There are a few things managers can do to think more broadly in terms of the problem and solutions. First, collect new information about the organization and its various components. Then, identify patterns of events and determine what might be causing these patterns. Challenge assumptions about how the organization works and what might be causing these patterns. Ask yourself, how will this change impact other parts of the organization? The final suggestion is to learn how to ask better questions of yourself and others to collect relevant information, called inquiry skills. How do I play a role in this problem? What are our assumptions about this problem? Can you explain what you mean when you say that? What examples can you share to help me understand your thinking? These are some of the questions that we can ask. Now that we've learned about defining the problem, let's learn about generating alternatives in the next video.